Welcome, Dolphins fans, haters, and everyone in between to your favorite show discussing the greatest franchise in sports, the Miami Dolphins. This is the PhinsPod. My name is Moose, your host, and today we're going to look back at the Dolphins' win over the Cincinnati Bengals Sunday afternoon, some reasons to be optimistic going forward, as well as some things to be worried about, and we're also going to talk about the incredibly overblown brawl, which resulted in one player getting suspended. We'll discuss all that, and as always, we'll take a quick look at the latest stories published over at PhinsPod.com. Let's dive in.
Meanwhile, that last penalty was on Robert Hunt for a false start. As Tua over the middle, and he's got his man. Haven't seen the Dolphins do a lot of up-tempo with Tua, but they're trying to jumpstart their offense here. And Tua's got Parker for a first down. Shove that about.
Two big, good-looking tight ends right there.
Tua escapes on the run, throws. He's got a wide-open Gaskin at the 20, inside the 10, and it's first and goal, Miami. Tua looking for Gesicki. He's got him for the touchdown. And what a drive out of the locker room by Miami. Tua goes 5 for 6 on the drive, and Miami takes the lead.
As we talked about in the preview episode, this game should have been easy for the Dolphins. They're just a better team than the Cincinnati Bengals in pretty much all facets. I don't think I'm really shocking anyone by saying that. Perhaps most of all, the biggest difference is in coaching. It was a home game. Miami needed the win more than Cincinnati, yet the start was rough. Miami's defense was playing okay at the start of the game, but they were not dominating the way you would expect, especially against a backup quarterback in Brandon Allen. And the offense came out and pretty lethargic under Tua again. So definitely some reason for concern, going into towards the end of that second quarter. And look, it was frustrating, and it was not conducive to any real hope for any legitimate shot at winning at playoff games. Look, the expectations for this team has changed. And the fact that I just said that it was frustrating, that, we were watching a team that I don't know if they could win in the playoffs, that's a great thing. The fact that now we're actually assessing how this team would face against the best of the best, when at the start of the season we were just trying to get into a place where our reputation is not one of a shitty team and we could win any game on Sunday. Now we should win most games on Sunday, and that the fact that turnaround has happened so fast and that the expectations are at a point where they are right now, it's really good. And yes, some fans are running way too far with it. Sometimes I'm to blame, and you'll probably hear that during the Kansas City Chiefs preview episode in a couple days. But I think the way this team is played and the roster that they have, the scheme that they have, the pieces and how they fit together, they should be able to go out there and win a lot of games. There definitely is something to the consistency of their winning, and that's okay. That the expectations have changed, and they're only going to go up. If they start going down, that's a bad thing. But the game wasn't going in the direction that we wanted to. It really felt like the Bengals were hanging in there, and the Bengals are a horrible team. So what does that say about the Dolphins? Well, some things seem to happen. I don't know if they made some adjustments, if the players kind of woke up from their slow beginning, but X got a pick, and the offense started opening up more and more. There's yet another interception by X. That's his 8th interception. And the whole team just started to play better towards the end of the second half. I don't know if Tua got more comfortable, if the play calling shifted, but Miami finished the first half really strong, and they kept it rolling throughout the second half, and they finished with that 19-7 victory. Let's talk about it more from a bird's eye view. So starting with the offense, you could argue that this was Tua's best game of his career. He finally really got to throw the ball a lot. He was 26 to 39. That's almost 40 attempts. I'm pretty sure he didn't crack 30 before this game, so the fact that he's nearing 40 shows that there was definitely a philosophical shift here. He threw for 296 yards, just 4 shy of 300. That would have been nice for all the people who claim that, clearly hitting 300 yards means you're a good quarterback. I mean, just look at Justin Herbert, right? He does it all the time. And 1 touchdown. And still no interceptions. So he's thrown 7 touchdowns with no picks. I believe if he I'm going to jinx him right here, and I apologize for that, but if he goes one more game without throwing a pick, he will be the first quarterback, I believe, in 6 starts to not throw an interception. So that's good. I think it tells you the type of quarterback you got. Tua just looked comfortable. He made some throws in tight windows, drove the team down the field. And there were some moments where you kind of saw what you saw in Arizona, and you felt a lot more comfortable about, where his trajectory was. For me, there were two plays of note. There was a one play that everyone remembers. It was where he sort of moved up and down in the pocket a little bit, then started rolling out to his left, and in the scramble drill hits Myles Gaskin for like a 36, 37-yard play, setting up the touchdown, I believe, or they might have kicked a field goal. There were a lot of field goals this game, which we'll get into. And then the other play was, it was similar, where he sort of evaded some pressure in the pocket, stepped to his left, and fired a dart to Devontae Parker in between two defenders. It was a low pass. Most likely in the video, you may see it if you're watching this on YouTube. But it definitely was. It was a really good throw, and the window was incredibly tight. And the confidence and sort of the chemistry that was shown there with Parker was really good. And the previous play we mentioned, the scramble drill, it sort of shows where his head's at. That the game's not moving too fast for him anymore. I think sometimes, in the first few games, that's what it looked like. Against the Broncos, that's definitely what it looked at like. But I think he's starting to understand certain schemes and how he wants to attack them, and that's only going to get better and better over time. So definitely some good things out of Tua, looking really good, and moved on to 4-1 as a starter. He did struggle in a few things. He struggled to hit the fade route. And the back shoulder throws, route, I don't know. It's a route. It's definitely a route. He struggled to hit the fade route and a lot of back shoulder throws, which can be boiled down to timing, and that can be worked on. You need to know when your receiver is going to get there based on their speed, based on the corner's leverage, based on where they are on the field. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and over time you get trust and you build that timing with your receiver. So that can be worked on, and the fact that that's kind of his biggest issue is hitting those back shoulders. Once it starts clicking, then he'll be able to make pretty much every single throw on the field, and the pocket presence is evident. That's clear. Mike Gesicki and Tua flashed some chemistry finally, and it was really good to see. It was honestly incredible to see. Mike had a career day, plus he got me 23 fantasy points, so thank you. He had 9 receptions for 88 yards, how fitting, and a touchdown. And he had that beautiful catch over the middle. That one-handed catch really reminded me of Rondé Gadsden making that catch. It was kind of the same look, the way you go out, legs sort of Jordan. It's kind of looked like Jordan out there, and then snagging it with one arm. I think he has the best hands on the team. I really do. Mike Gesicki, they are strong. The way I've never seen someone really stick a hand in there and knock it out. Once it gets on his mitts, it's there. I don't know if it's the stickum he's got on his gloves, but he's kind of always been that way. He's never really had issues with drops. It's just about getting open consistently, and he struggled to block earlier in his career. I feel like that's gotten better, and on top of that, you throw it in his radius, he'll come down with it. So it's really good to see that building. And there were a couple other moments where you saw Tua sort of, as an outlet, hitting Mike Gesicki. So I think that this game really is the beginning of something more fruitful. I really expect their chemistry to continue to grow, and draft Mike Gesicki in fantasy going forward. Look, no other receiver other than Mike Gesicki really made much of a contribution. It was pretty spread out, which was good to see. But Lynn Bowden Jr. entered the mix. If you remember, Lynn Bowden Jr. was someone we traded for with the Raiders. He was drafted in the 3rd round this year, and then we flipped him. We got him for a 4th-round pick. So the Raiders were trying to convert him to a running back. He came out of Kentucky, so he did play in the SEC. He started as a receiver at Kentucky, but there were some injuries to the quarterback, and so he played a full season last year in Kentucky as their Wildcats, gadget, running back, quarterback, do it all. He can throw it, so definitely have some things in their arsenal for trick plays. But he pretty much played the Malcolm Perry role that Malcolm Perry played over at Navy. But he has actually had reps at receiver. So while Malcolm Perry's still making that adjustment, and I think he will also be a really good piece going forward, he's just struggling with an injury right now. But look, Lynn Bowden is dynamic with the ball in his hands. He had 4 catches, 41 yards. Expect him to continue to be integrated more and more. And he also had that one rush for 11 yards. So the fact that Miami's operating, using players in different facets. We saw Jakeem Grant got a couple handoffs that they claimed to be passes because Tua just shuffled the ball forward a little bit. But you're seeing that the offense is getting a little more horizontal, and that's really good to see. Moving on to the run game. look, it's still not where we want it. The gash runs are too few and far between. And it was good to see Myles Gaskin back. He did have one of those gash runs. He ended up fumbling it, unfortunately. He toted the ball a whopping 21 times, it feels like a lot. I mean, I know a lot of running backs average over 20 yards a carry, but for Miami, the way the offense is run, it's really surprising. And I think the fact that he touched the ball so many times right after coming back from a knee injury, it just points to the lack of depth that Miami has at the position. He didn't get any rushing touchdowns, which factored in a lot of field goals. They really tried hammering the ball in, and they need to get better at that. If they can't run the ball on a 3rd and 1 or at 3rd and goal, 2nd and goal, at the 2, you can't score those touchdowns, it's going to come to bite you in the butt, because the difference between 7 points and 3 points against teams that are good, those cost you games. So just some general issues from the offense. Look, the offensive line does not move people. That goes into the run game. The pass blocking was better this week, but there's just no push. It really hurts offensive drives, and it puts the offense in 3rd and long far too often. And that goes right into 3rd down conversion. Miami's 3rd down conversion rate is near the middle to the lower bottom of the league. The only way to have success long term is to sustain drives, score points. Miami can't keep relying on field position set up by special teams and defense. They need to be able to take any drive and take it all the way. And the way you do that is converting 3rd downs. And especially with the next opponent coming up, we can't afford to make mistakes. The Chiefs are going to feast on us if we make those mistakes. So we have to make sure we're all on our P's and Q's and we're able to execute to the highest level possible, just so we can stay in the game and give ourselves a shot to win. So moving over to the defensive side of the ball, other than the one busted play, the defense was dominant throughout the game. Brandon Allen's numbers look better than they really were. He went 11 for 19, 153 yards, but again, 72 of that, nearly half of that, was on one pass. So he threw a touchdown on that pass, and then he also threw a pick, the aforementioned interception to Xavier Howard. They couldn't run the ball at all, which is a good sign. It was really refreshing to see them struggle to consistently get a ground game going, but the Bengals are atrocious. So that's probably more the reason why Miami was able to stop the run. Their leading rusher was Giovanni Bernard. He had 12 rushes for 30 yards. The leading receiver was Tyler Boyd. He caught one pass for 72 yards on the play. They have a young guy from Clemson, T. Higgins. He had 5 receptions. He I think is going to be pretty good long term. He's got the body for it. He really does look kind of like a young AJ Green a little bit. So he definitely flashed for me, and I think long term the Bengals got a good one in him. And Boyd's really good too. I think he's a little bit of a pussy, but other than that, I think he's a damn good receiver. Kyle Van Noy had a day. He finished the game with 8 tackles and 3 sacks, so by far his best performance in aqua and orange. And then, like we mentioned, Xavier Howard with the pick, and that makes 8 interceptions on the season. So he's a guaranteed Pro Bowler, but in my opinion, he should be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. If Stephon Gilmore was last season, I don't understand why X isn't this season. He's not only a better playmaker than Stephon Gilmore was, I think he's right there in terms of locking down elite receivers. Shaq Lawson had 2 sacks of his own, and Zach Sealer came in with 1 sack too. So Miami, we talked about in the previous episode, I said that the game was set up for Miami to eat on the defensive line, and they did with 6 sacks. So that was a good performance. And look, the defense needed to build off their consistent play over the last few weeks in order to slow down or have any chance of slowing down Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And look, we're going to talk more about that matchup in the preview episode, which will be out later this week. So be sure to stay tuned, subscribe, just so you don't miss a conversation about the Miami Dolphins here at the PhinsPod. And then lastly, let's just give some love to Jason Sanders. I know that all Dolphins Nation has been doing it, but geez, that guy has been awesome. He's kind of Justin Tucker-esque in the way he's kind of going about his business. Each kick looks the same. He was 4 for 4 on field goals, and yes, 3 of them were absolute chip shots because the offense failed to punch it in. But throughout the season, he's made 28 of 29 field goals, except the one jinx, one that was jinxed by Gumbel, I believe. Yeah, Greg Gumbel. He jinxed it, said this guy's automatic, and then there you go, Sanders shanking it to the side. So aside from the jinx, he's 28 for 29, and he's hit all 27 extra point attempts. And the kicking game as a whole has been huge. I mean, if you remember in the game, there was a 4th and goal at the 2-yard line, and Miami set up in this wild formation where Jason Sanders was set up as a running back, Matt Hawk was under center. You had the rest of the 3 offensive linemen and the receivers and the rest of the line, including Austin Jackson and Robert Hunt, on the outside as receivers. Now, the problem was that the Dolphins rookie offensive lineman, forgot to report to the referees. Now, this is a procedural thing. This is nothing to do with the actual play itself because it resulted in an awesome run, which I wish stayed because that would have been highlights for the next 3 years, the same way that play last year against the Eagles still reigns supreme in our minds as one of the best special teams plays of the year. This would have put the legend of Matt Hawk and Jason Sanders even higher, and they deserve it. They've been really good. So it's really frustrating to see that sort of a procedural penalty will result in that play being erased, but it shows that there are some tricks up this Dolphins team's sleeve that we may see against some of these bigger teams going forward, and maybe even in the playoffs. So definitely a good overall performance once again from the kicking unit. And lastly, I just want to touch on that brawl that we saw. I don't really call it a brawl. I just think it was just some shoving and yelling. There weren't you need at least 2 people throwing punches and for it to be considered a fight, let alone just one guy shoving a coach down, Devontae Parker. But firstly, I think tensions were building all game. It was clear. Usually that happens. We've seen Miami in years past be that team because you're out of it. Players are frustrated. They're losing. They just want to, get some anger out, and so they do it on the field. I know we saw the Dolphins do that often, getting sort of these little tiffs with teams that were just better. And now it's nice to be on the other side of it. Yeah, the Bengals are going to be mad. They suck. They're looking to the offseason. They don't want to play. They know they got a lame duck head coach. So, I mean, they were chippy. I don't think Miami was being anything extra. They were just playing hard. But there was definitely some chippiness, and that out pass to Tyler Boyd over his head, out of bounds. You have Byron Jones coming in case he's trying to make a play on it, and he bumps him, hits him. I mean, he was in the field to play. It wasn't dirty. There was no flag, but he didn't like it, and that's fine. You don't have to like getting hit. That happens all the time. He let Byron Jones know he had a problem with it. Xavier Howard came to his defense, said something. Who knows what was said after. There was some pushing, smacking. I don't really think Xavier threw a punch. No one should have been ejected. That was really poor refereeing, in my opinion. Those are 2 really dynamic players, and I think the game suffered because of it. I mean, I think Miami would have won regardless, but it hurt the Bengals more than it hurt the Dolphins because Tyler Boyd is more valuable to the Bengals than Xavier is to us. And I know that what you all are like, wait, what? How could you say that? Because Miami has the pieces to supplement a loss of their best player better than the Bengals do. The Bengals lost him and just were anemic. The Dolphins were able to put in Noah Igbenogany, shade some help over the top, and still play good defense. We saw that throughout the second half. So it was much worse for the Bengals than it was for Miami. And going on to the brawl, look, that gunner, number 80, I believe it was Michael Thomas or Ian Thomas or something, he was just teeing off. Like, those are free hits. Jakeem Grant's a tiny guy. He felt like, you know what, I'm just going to take a shot at this guy because usually I get juked the hell out. So I got a clean hit. And so, look, I just think it was a team that is not well coached, that doesn't have any accountability in sort of how they operate. And those players on the fringes kind of let that show. So I understand, and I love that Miami came to the defense of Jakeem. I mean, he's their tiniest player. You don't want, teams thinking that they can go after him and make him get in his head. You need Jakeem feeling confident on those kick returns. So getting smacked like that does not help. And I think Miami took exception to it. I absolutely loved Brian Flores coming out onto the field. I think most all Dolphins fans and a lot of media, frankly, has been on Brian Flores for it. It was great showing how much he cares about not only his team, but making sure that things are being done right in the right way. So it was really good to see. And I definitely think that it's only going to go, it's only going to help him in the future as he tries to recruit players, as he tries to bring people back, because they know that this is a coach who actually gives a damn about them, and that means a lot. So the brawl, I think it says more about the Bengals than the Dolphins, but I think the way Miami handled it was really good to see, and hopefully they can carry that edge and some of that anger into next week as they face a great opponent.
Here we go, Bengals, Dolphins. Tua was benched, and then he was hurt, and now he's back and healthy-ish. 7-6 early Cincinnati. How automatic right now is Mike Gesicki? If you watch Red Zone, every time they go to a Dolphins game, Mike Gesicki's going to touchdown. He's on one, as they say.
He's a Pro Bowler. He has to be a Pro Bowler.
He's fantastic. I agree. He's really, really come on. But this is so strange. Look at this. Boom. A cheap shot, a weird hit. That is Mike Thomas hitting Jakeem Grant for the second time. Second time in the game. It's like he has an out for him. Look at Flores. You want to go? What? You going against my guys? Let's go. You got business? It was crazy. Flores was so fired up. Then you had punches thrown. You had a coach in the mix getting knocked over. Ben Kinkle right in the front of it. Of course he was, because he's a leader.
Don't mess with Brooklyn.
Flores, who said, I got to be measured afterwards. But I thought he showed his team something yesterday, and they also won to get it 8-4.
Flores from Brooklyn. Don't mess with him.
Okay.
From Brownsville, same town as Mike Tyson.
Collect pigeons.
I don't mess with Brian Flores.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. That'll do it for us here today. I hope you enjoy yet another victory week. That makes 8. We know we need at least 10 to get in the playoffs, so two more of those. Appreciate you tuning in for this episode of the PhinsPod. As always, I really hope you enjoyed it. Remember, we're going to be back in a couple days to dive into Sunday's huge game against the Chiefs. That'll be at 1 o'clock on Sunday on CBS with the Romo Meister himself. I'm really excited. I know people, for some reason, hate on him. I think it's because he's, really overblown in terms of how good he is. But he is really good. Like, watching him call games, it's just because we see him call the same teams over and over again. So it gets a little bit redundant of him, talking about, Patrick Mahomes. But I think it'll be really exciting for us to hear what he genuinely thinks of Tua and sort of going through, why Miami's making certain play calls, what Tua's thinking, and how he matches up against Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I cannot wait for Sunday afternoon, regardless of the outcome. I think it'll be a hella fun 4 hours, and I don't expect Miami to be blown out. And trust me, we'll get more into that in detail, but you might like what I have to say. So make sure to come back. We will be discussing. And please remember to subscribe to the show wherever it is you listen. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Please subscribe, give a rating. It really helps the show out and helps other fans find the show. We'd really appreciate it. And look, I don't want you missing a chance to talk about your favorite team and the best team in all of sports, the Miami Dolphins. So just continue the conversation with us on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us at PhinsPod. And check out the site for news and content, PhinsPod.com. I hope you have an amazing day and enjoy the victory week. Until next time, stay safe. Love y'all.